In the summer of 1983, a young highway patrolwoman finished her late-night shift and vanished. Her cruiser, gone. She was gone. It was as if both had been swallowed whole by the night. For weeks, officers scoured every canyon, riverbank, and back road, but there was nothing. No car, no tracks, no sign of her. It was as though she had been erased from the earth. Whispers spread. Some said she was ambushed by criminals she had crossed paths with. Others believed she turned her back on her badge and disappeared to start a secret new life. For over 2 decades, her story was nothing but rumor and fear. Until one summer, when a drought drained a lake to levels no one had ever seen before. And that's when the water revealed something buried deep in the mud. What they found would finally solve the mystery, but it would also raise questions no one was prepared to face. Stick with me, because this story only gets darker from here. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more chilling true crime mysteries, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from right now? It's late summer of 1983. A 27-year-old highway patrolwoman finishes her shift. The night has been quiet, just routine traffic stops and a few calls about reckless drivers. Nothing unusual. Inside the station, she takes off her hat and sets it on the desk. She's tired but smiling. Other officers are gathered around, writing up reports, pouring coffee, and making jokes about how dead the night has been. She laughs with them. They tease her about always being the one to take the boring shifts. One officer asks if she's heading straight home. She nods and says she just wants to get some sleep. Another jokes that she works too hard, that one day she'll fall asleep in her cruiser. She rolls her eyes but smiles anyway. The patrolwoman finishes her paperwork. She places her gun belt on the table, checks her sidearm, then holsters it again. She does everything by the book. Before leaving, she chats a little more with her coworkers. They notice nothing strange. She looks tired but normal. She walks out to the parking lot. Her police cruiser is waiting. She opens the door, sits inside, and adjusts her radio. The others watch her leave, never thinking it would be the last time they'd see her. As the headlights fade into the night, the mood in the station is light. Nobody suspects anything. Nobody imagines that in a few hours she'll be gone without a trace. The patrolwoman drives down the quiet highway. The night is dark, the road almost empty. She radios dispatch, her voice calm and steady. Unit 47 heading home. The dispatcher confirms. Copy that, have a safe night. That short exchange is routine. It happens every shift. But this one is different. This will be the last time her voice is ever heard on the radio. After that call, silence takes over the line. Dispatch expects her to check in again when she reaches home, but she never does. At first, nobody notices. Officers finish their reports, grab late dinners, and head home themselves. The dispatcher assumes she made it back fine. Hours pass and still nothing. By early morning, her absence becomes clear. Her bed at home is untouched. Her car isn't in the driveway. She hasn't called anyone. No one knows where she is. The dispatcher replays the last radio call. Her voice sounds normal, calm, with no stress. It doesn't sound like someone in trouble. That makes it more confusing. She was there 1 minute, gone the next. No distress call, no warning, just silence. And silence, for an officer on duty, is never a good sign. By sunrise, questions start. Officers expect to see her at roll call, but her chair is empty. At first, people think maybe she overslept. That would be unusual for her, but not impossible. The dispatcher checks the log. Her last words were clear. Heading home. No hint of trouble. Still, hours have passed. She should have checked in by now. Coworkers call her house phone. No answer. They send a car to drive by her home. Her car isn't in the driveway. The bed inside looks untouched. The patrolwoman never made it home. That's when the mood changes. What started as mild concern turns into alarm. Officers gather in the station, worried. They know her. She doesn't just vanish. She always checks in. She always shows up. A sergeant gives the order, start searching. Patrol cars are sent to check highways, side roads, and gas stations. Helicopters are requested. Everyone moves fast. As the minutes tick by, fear spreads. They search ditches, fields, bridges, and rivers, but no cruiser, no skid marks, nothing. By mid-morning, the entire department knows something is wrong. She isn't just late, she's missing. When word reaches her family, panic sets in. Her parents are called first. They don't believe it at first. She was supposed to come home after her shift like always. She never called. She never showed up. Her mother begs for answers, demanding to know where her daughter is. Her father tries to stay calm, but he can't hide his fear. Her siblings rush to the station. They push through reporters already sniffing out a story. The family gathers in the lobby, surrounded by officers who have no good news to give. Detectives explain what they know. Her last radio call, the search already underway, the lack of evidence so far. The words missing and no trace hang heavy in the air. Her family pleads with police to search harder, to check every road, every river, every corner. They don't want to hear excuses. They want action. By midday, the patrolwoman's face is everywhere, pinned on walls, on flyers, on television. What began as a quiet morning has turned into a nightmare for her family. For them, this isn't just a case. It's their daughter, their sister, and she is gone. Scene 5. First search teams roll out 400 words. By late morning, the search expands. Patrol cars crisscross highways leading out of town. Officers slow down at every bend, scanning for tire marks, broken fences, or anything out of place. They check the ditches that line the rural roads. Tall weeds are pushed aside. Flashlights sweep across mud and gravel. Nothing. Bridges become checkpoints. Officers lean over railings, peering into the waters below. Each splash of current looks suspicious. Each shadow might be a clue, but there is no sign of her car. Farm roads are next. Officers drive slowly down dirt paths, searching for skid marks. They knock on doors, asking farmers if they saw or heard anything during the night. Most shake their heads, confused by the sudden urgency. The search isn't random. Maps are marked, grids drawn, each road crossed off one by one. But every mile covered adds to the frustration. By nightfall, dozens of miles have been checked. Not a trace. No car, no uniform, nothing. It feels impossible. A police officer, someone trained to notice danger, has simply disappeared between the station and her home, and with each empty road, the mystery deepens. The next day, the search grows bigger. Helicopters circle the skis, their spotlights slicing through trees and fields. From above, rivers gleam silver and ponds shimmer black. Crews look for the outline of a car, for anything unusual beneath the water's surface. On the ground, officers guide divers into lakes and rivers. The water is cold and murky, swallowing light. Divers swim slowly, feeling along the bottom with their hands. They search for metal, for glass, for the familiar shape of a vehicle. One by one, lakes are cleared. Each time divers surface empty-handed, the tension rises. News spreads quickly. Reporters gather at roadblocks. Families and neighbors line the roads, watching as the search unfolds. Rumors swirl, maybe she ran away, maybe she was taken, maybe something worse. But investigators have no answers to give. They only know this. If her car went into the water, it's hidden too well to see. By the end of the week, the search has stretched across miles of countryside. Helicopters have scanned every major river. Divers have searched countless ponds. And yet the patrolwoman's car remains invisible, as if it vanished into thin air. Days into the search, investigators return to the basics. They retrace every possible route she could have taken from the station to her home. The patrol cars roll slowly down each stretch of pavement, headlights sweeping the road edges, looking for even the smallest clue. If her cruiser went off the road, there should be signs. A skid mark, a dent in a guardrail, a broken fence. But there's nothing. Every mile is clean. The highways are untouched. The backroads look the same as they did the night before. No crushed grass, no mud tracks leading into the trees. Investigators kneel down along ditches and creek beds, running their hands through the dirt. They expect to find a piece of broken glass, a fragment of paint, maybe even a side mirror. But the ground is bare. Crews bring in search dogs, hoping they'll pick up her scent. The dogs pull along the roadsides, sniffing the air, but they give no signals. It's as if she never drove those roads at all. To the officers, it makes no sense. Cars don't just vanish. Accidents always leave something behind. But here there is nothing. Detectives begin to whisper among themselves. If it wasn't an accident, then what was it? Families and neighbors gather near the station, asking the same question. They hear that no skid marks were found, no broken glass, no debris anywhere. Some begin to believe she was taken, forced into another vehicle. Others think maybe she staged her own disappearance. But deep down, her fellow officers don't believe either theory. She was dedicated to her badge. She was on her way home. Something happened, but no one can prove what. By the end of the week, the investigation feels stuck. The patrolwoman has vanished. The cruiser has vanished. And the open roads where she should have been are spotless, as though she never drove them at all. For the first time, investigators face a chilling possibility. Maybe they won't find her. With no sign of the missing patrolwoman or her car, the case changes hands. Local officers, already stretched thin, hand it over to a special task force. Detectives from the state level arrive, determined to find answers. Their first step is to review everything they know. They replay the radio call she made before vanishing. Her voice is steady, calm, almost routine. Nothing in her words suggests panic or danger. Detectives map out her last known route. The station to her home should have been a short, simple drive. No detours. No strange stops. They drive the same roads themselves, hopping something jumps out, a blind curve, a hidden drop, a dangerous stretch of highway. Still, they see nothing unusual. Next, they pull her work records. She wasn't working any controversial cases at the time. No angry suspects, no threats, no recent confrontations. Everything points to a normal shift, ending like countless others before it. They also look into her phone records and finances. No late-night calls, no odd withdrawals, no sudden purchases. Everything seems stable. It leaves detectives with only questions. If she wasn't attacked and she didn't run away, then what happened? To cover every angle, they reach out to other agencies. They ask highway patrol, sheriff's deputies, and local police to share tips. Flyers go out across multiple counties. They want to be sure no lead slips through the cracks. Behind closed doors, detectives debate theories. One says it could still be an accident. Another believes she was lured off the road by someone pretending to need help. But without evidence, all they have are guesses. As the days drag on, the weight of the mystery grows heavier. The task force is determined, but already they feel the pressure. A police officer has vanished without a trace. And if detectives can't solve it, people will start to wonder, could it happen again? Detectives turn their attention to the people who knew her best. They begin interviewing her friends, family, and fellow officers, hoping someone can give them a lead. Her coworkers describe her as one of the most reliable officers on the force. She never skipped a shift, never called in sick without reason. She was proud of her badge, proud of serving the community. To them, the idea that she just walked away is impossible. Her close friends agree. They tell detectives she was kind, loyal, and dependable. She wasn't reckless. She didn't take big risks. If anything, she was the kind of person others leaned on when things got tough. Her family paints the same picture. Her parents sit across from detectives, heartbroken but clear. Their daughter was responsible. She had goals. She wanted to keep moving forward in her career. Disappearing was not who she was. Detectives press with hard questions. Did she have secrets? Was she hiding problems? Was she afraid of someone? But the answers stay the same. Nobody can think of a single reason she would vanish on her own. Her siblings share how she had plans for the coming weeks, dinners, birthdays, family gatherings. They insist she wouldn't just abandon them. Even her fellow officers, trained to be skeptical, can't imagine her leaving her post. She loved her job too much. For detectives, the interviews confirm what they feared. The disappearance doesn't make sense. There's no hidden drama, no secret double life, no warning signs at all. If she didn't choose to vanish, then something else happened. But what? The frustration grows. Detectives write page after page of notes, yet the answers never come. The story everyone tells is the same. She was loyal, grounded, and steady. A young woman with no reason to run. And that makes the silence even harder to explain. Detectives know that sometimes answers hide close to home. They begin questioning her fellow officers one by one. Every interview is detailed, every timeline double-checked. At first, the officers are calm, confident, but as the hours pass, the tone shifts. Detectives press harder. They ask about personal conflicts, grudges, even jealousy on the force. Was anyone angry with her? Did anyone want her gone? The officers bristle at the suggestions. Most are visibly upset. Many had worked with her for years. They insist she was respected, trusted, even admired. Losing one of their own feels like losing family. But detectives can't afford to take anyone at their word. They go over every officer's alibi the night she vanished. They ask where each person was, who they were with, what they were doing. Every detail is written down. The more they push, the more it becomes clear. The officers are just as stunned as the family. Their grief is real. Their fear is real. One officer admits, if it can happen to her, it can happen to any of us. The task force leaves with little new information. The officers remain under a cloud of suspicion, but no cracks appear. What detectives find is not guilt, but shock, frustration, and helplessness. With no clear answers, the case begins to spin out of control. Local media takes hold of the story, and soon rumors spread across town like wildfire. Newspapers run headlines asking if she was ambushed during her patrol. Some reporters claim she may have pulled over the wrong person that night. Others push the idea of a runaway officer, someone who secretly wanted to start a new life. On talk radio, callers throw out their own theories. One insists she had a secret romance with someone in uniform. Another swears they heard she was planning to leave the force. None of it is backed by evidence, but it doesn't matter. The rumors take on a life of their own. Detectives watch in frustration. Every headline, every whisper makes their job harder. Tip lines are flooded with false sightings and wild claims. One caller says they saw her car hidden in the woods. Another says they saw her getting on a bus across state lines. None of it checks out. The family suffers most. They open the paper and see strangers speculating about their daughter, their sister. To them, it feels cruel, like her memory is being twisted into a story for gossip. Still, detectives can't ignore any possibility. Every rumor, no matter how strange, has to be investigated. And with each one, hope fades a little more. Detectives get their first big tip. Several locals come forward, saying they saw a patrol car late that night. According to them, the cruiser was parked on a quiet back road, headlights still on. One driver swears they saw someone sitting inside. The task force jumps on the lead. Officers rush out to the area and begin searching every stretch of road. They comb through ditches, check abandoned barns, even walk through fields with flashlights. The hope is high. Finally, maybe they're close to finding her. But as the hours pass, nothing adds up. The road is empty. No tire marks, no footprints, no trace of a police cruiser ever being there. Detectives re-interview the witnesses. Details begin to blur. One insists the car was a cruiser. Another admits it might have been a normal sedan. A third says they can't remember if it was that night or the night before. Still, investigators treat every sighting seriously. They bring in more officers, expand the search grid, and check maps for hidden pull-offs. Days are spent chasing this single clue. In the end, there's nothing. The supposed sighting vanishes into thin air, just like she did. Not long after, another tip surfaces, this one even more dramatic. A local man claims he saw her cruiser stop along the highway. According to him, she pulled over to help a stranger waving his arms by the roadside. Detectives treat it as urgent. If true, it could mean she was lured into danger. Search teams flood the stretch of highway described. They walk shoulder to shoulder through weeds and brush. Helicopters hover above, scanning for any sign of the cruiser or its driver. Nothing appears. No evidence of a struggle, no footprints, no discarded items, just silence. When detectives press the witness for more details, the story begins to unravel. His timeline doesn't line up. His description of the stranger shifts each time he tells it. At one point, he even admits he can't be completely sure it was her car. The lead, like so many before it, falls apart, but the damage is already done. The rumor spreads fast the patrolwoman was tricked, ambushed, maybe killed. Fear grips the community. For investigators, frustration builds. Each new lead gives hope, only to collapse into dust. By now, the investigation feels like a loop. A new tip comes in, detectives chase it, and then it collapses, over and over again. One caller insists they saw her cruiser parked near an abandoned gas station. Detectives swarm the site, search every corner, and find nothing. Another tip says her car was pushed into a quarry. Divers spend 2 long days in the water, only to come up empty. Each failure drains time, money, and morale. The case file grows thicker, but the answers never come. Detectives replay the radio call again and again, hoping they missed something. They retrace the same roads, check maps for hidden paths, and still, there's no sign of her or the cruiser. Frustration turns to exhaustion. Some officers whisper that maybe she really did run away. Others snap back that she would never do that. Tension grows inside the task force as doubts creep in. What makes it worse is the silence. No ransom note, no message, no evidence of foul play. It's as if she was swallowed by the night itself. Weeks slip into months. The trail is already ice cold, and the longer it stays that way, the less likely it is they'll ever solve it. Eventually, the media moves on. New stories replace hers on the front page. Reporters stop calling. The public stops talking. But her family refuses to let go. They keep her photo in newspapers, on posters, and in shop windows. They push detectives to keep looking, even when the trail is dead. For them, she is not just a mystery or a rumor. She is a daughter, a sister, and a loved one who never came home. And they will not let the world forget her. The first few weeks after she vanished were filled with constant movement, search teams, helicopters, roadblocks. But now, as months begin to pass, the search slows. Detectives still follow leads, but the urgency is fading. In town, people don't forget. Instead, they start talking. At diners, in gas stations, at bars, her name keeps coming up. Everyone has an opinion, and the mystery grows with each retelling. One man swears she was ambushed on the job. Another insists she must have been involved in something secret. Cars don't just disappear, someone says, shaking their head. The theory spread like wildfire. Some sound possible, others sound strange. But with no answers from investigators, rumors fill the silence. Detectives hear the whispers too. They know how quickly stories can twist the truth. Still, they can't ignore them. Sometimes a wild theory hides a grain of fact. Meanwhile, her family feels the sting. When they walk into a store, they hear people whispering. They see headlines questioning her character. To them, it feels like the world is rewriting her story while she's still missing. The search may be slowing, but the mystery is only growing stronger. Soon, one rumor begins to dominate the talk. Maybe she wasn't taken at all. Maybe she ran. People start saying she had problems no one knew about. A debt, a relationship gone bad. Some even claim she was leading a double life. Detectives chase the theory. They dig through her finances again, checking for large withdrawals or hidden accounts. Nothing unusual. They recheck her phone records, looking for secret calls or unknown numbers. Still nothing. They question her friends again. Did she ever hint at running away? Did she ever talk about starting over somewhere new? Everyone says the same thing. No, she was steady. She had goals. She wanted to move forward, not vanish. Her family pushes back hardest. They know her best and they reject the rumor completely. Her mother says, "She wouldn't abandon us. That wasn't her." Her siblings agree. The idea hurts them more than the silence itself. Detectives finally conclude there's no proof of a secret life. No debt, no hidden plan, no reason to leave. But the damage is done. Once the rumor is out, it sticks. People repeat it anyway, and the story begins to drift farther from the truth. As the secret life rumor fades, another one rises. This time, it sounds more believable to many locals. They say she must have been ambushed. People point out that she had made plenty of arrests in her career. Some criminals hated her for it. Maybe one of them came back for revenge. The idea spreads quickly. She was attacked while doing her job. Detectives take the theory seriously. They begin reviewing every case she had worked in the months before she vanished. Assaults, DUIs, drug arrests. They look at names, check old reports, and dig into who might have held a grudge. They visit former suspects, some still in jail, others back in town. but most alibis check out. Many of the criminals she arrested had no way of reaching her that night. Still, detectives know revenge is always possible. They reread her notes, searching for hints that she felt threatened. Nothing stands out. No warnings, no mentions of danger. The rumor refuses to die, though. For the community, it feels like the cleanest answer. She was taken by someone bad she had once put away. But the files don't support it. Another theory, another dead end. Then comes the darkest rumor yet. Some locals begin whispering that maybe it wasn't criminals at all. Maybe it was one of her own. At first, detectives dismiss the idea, but soon the talk spreads. People point out that officers are always the first on scene. They know the roads. They know how searches work. If one of them wanted to hide something, they could. Inside the station, the rumor hits hard. Detectives begin rechecking the statements of fellow officers. Where were they that night? Could any of them have crossed paths with her? The questions create tension. Trust inside the department starts to crack. Officers who once stood united now eye each other with quiet suspicion. Detectives don't find hard evidence against anyone, but the damage lingers. Morale drops. Some officers lash out at the press for printing the rumors. Others grow silent, worried about being accused. For the family, this rumor cuts the deepest. They had trusted the police to find her. Now people are saying the police may be responsible. It's a theory with no proof, but once again it spreads fast. And once again it leaves detectives chasing shadows. Just when detectives think the rumors can't get any stranger, a teepster calls in with a dramatic claim. He swears he knows what happened to the missing officer. According to him, her cruiser was buried under a stretch of farmland on the edge of town. At first, detectives hesitate. They've followed dozens of false tips already, but the caller is convincing. He describes the exact field and even claims heavy machinery was used the night she disappeared. The department decides to take a chance. They contact the landowner, who reluctantly agrees to let them search. Soon, a backhoe and team of workers arrive at the field. Neighbors gather along the fence line, whispering as the digging begins. The machine claws into the soil, tearing deep trenches. Every few minutes, detectives lean over the edge, scanning for the glint of metal, the shape of a buried car. The crowd grows tense, waiting for the moment when the earth might reveal the missing patrol cruiser. Hours pass. Dirt piles grow taller, but nothing appears. Detectives order the digging to go deeper. The teepster, standing nearby, insists they're close. But by nightfall, the only thing uncovered is more dirt. No car, no cruiser, no evidence. The tip that once seemed promising is declared another false lead. The farmland is refilled, leaving nothing behind but raw soil and more disappointment. For detectives, it's yet another exhausting reminder of how rumors can waste time and crush hope. By now, the investigation feels like a cycle of promises and heartbreak. Each new tip sparks hope. Each false lead crushes it. Detectives begin to feel the weight of the search more than ever before. The community keeps calling in theories, some wild, some detailed, but most go nowhere. Detectives chase them all, only to return empty-handed. The search logs are filled with endless entries. Fields dug up, ponds drained, barns searched, suspects questioned. Every effort ends the same way, with nothing. Exhaustion creeps in. Detectives arrive at the office each morning drained, knowing the day will likely bring another dead end. Family members of the missing officer stop asking for daily updates because the news is always the same. Inside the department, morale collapses. The force that once swore to find answers now struggles to believe answers exist. Even the strongest officers, the ones who refuse to give up, admit privately that they're running out of ideas. Each failure feels like starting over, as if the case has reset to day one. Weeks turn into months. The missing officer's face, once everywhere, starts fading from the headlines. What began as a united mission to bring her home has become a grinding test of patience and faith. For detectives, the hardest part isn't the work itself. It's the feeling that every step forward leads straight back to nowhere. While detectives feel the case slipping further away, her family refuses to let her be forgotten. From the very beginning, they decide they will not sit quietly and wait. If the system runs out of energy, they will keep pushing. They organize candlelight vigils in front of the police station, at the courthouse, even in the small park where she used to jog. Dozens of people gather, holding signs and candles, standing shoulder to shoulder. Each vigil ends the same way, with her family begging the public not to stop searching, not to stop caring. Flyers are printed by the thousands. Her parents and siblings spend late nights at the kitchen table, folding stacks of paper until their hands cramp. The flyers carry her photo, a wide smile in uniform, and the words, "Missing, please help." Volunteers drive across counties, tapping them to utility poles, store windows, gas stations, and schools. Even when rain washes them away, her family replaces them the next day. They also plead with the press. Every chance they get, they sit in front of cameras, asking for tips. Her mother, eyes swollen from crying, tells reporters she just wants to know if her daughter is alive or gone. Her father looks directly into the lens and promises that he will never stop searching. For the family, keeping her face in public view becomes a mission. They believe the more people who see her, the harder it will be for the world to move on. Even as the case grows cold, even as newspapers bury her story on the back pages, her family fights to keep her name alive. Every vigil, every flyer, every interview is their way of saying, "She mattered, she still matters, and we will not let her memory vanish into silence." By the late 1980s, the case has grown cold. At first, detectives kept her file on their desks, reviewing it every day, waiting for the one lead that might break things open. But as weeks turned into months and months into years, the energy drained away. Tips still trickled in, but each one went nowhere. Some were proven false in hours, others dragged on for weeks before collapsing. Each dead end made detectives more cautious, less hopeful. Slowly, the case file was moved from the desk to the shelf, and then, eventually, to the cabinet. New crimes demanded attention. Fresh cases piled up. Detectives were reassigned. The officers who once spent their nights driving lonely highways, hopping to spot something connected to her disappearance, began working other cases. By the late 1980s, her disappearance was no longer the department's top priority. The file gathered dust in a back room filled with other unsolved cases. Her name, once spoken daily in squad meetings, now came up only when someone asked, "Whatever happened with that missing officer?" For her family, this was unbearable. They saw the silence as giving up. To them, every day without answers was another day stolen from her memory. But to the department, the case was now a cold file, an unsolved mystery waiting for a miracle. While detectives moved on, her family was stuck in the same nightmare. Year after year, they woke up with the same question: where is she? Her parents grew older with no answers. Every holiday felt incomplete. At Christmas, her chair at the table stayed empty. On birthdays, her mother baked a cake anyway, placing a candle for a daughter who never came home. Photos of her in uniform remained on the walls, but they grew faded from the sun. Her siblings, once children when she vanished, grew into adults. They married, had kids, built lives of their own, but each milestone carried a shadow. She was supposed to be there at weddings, at baby showers, at family gatherings. Instead, she was only a memory. Her father's hair turned gray. Her mother's face aged from years of stress and tears. Neighbors noticed how the once lively family grew quieter, more withdrawn. Yet they never stopped hopping. Every holiday, every birthday, her family held on to the same thought. Maybe next year will bring answers. Maybe tomorrow someone will call with news. Decades passed, but the silence remained. For the family, time never healed. It only deepened the absence. As the years passed, the officers who once searched for her began leaving the force. One by one, they retired, turning in their badges after long careers. Some had been rookies the night she disappeared. Others had been seasoned veterans. But all of them carried the same burden: they had no answers. At retirement parties, her name still came up. Old partners would sit together, talking about the early days on patrol, and eventually the subject would drift to her. The same questions always hung in the air. How could a police car just vanish? How did they miss it? The retirees tried to leave the mystery behind when they walked out of the station for the last time, but it followed them. Some admitted they still thought about it when driving at night. Others said they dreamed about it, her cruiser, headlights cutting through the dark, then gone. For them, the case was more than a story. It was personal. She had been one of their own, and they had failed to bring her home. Even decades later, as their uniforms faded and their badges sat in drawers, they still carried one question into retirement. What really happened that night? Every few years, a new detective would inherit her file. They would open the thick folder, filled with reports, photos, and maps, and study it like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Each fresh detective believed they might be the one to crack it. They tracked down old witnesses, re-interviewed friends and family, and compared every lead. They requested searches with new tools, hoping that modern technology might uncover what the first team had missed. But no matter how hard they tried, the results were always the same. No car, no clues, no trace. Detectives grew frustrated. Some confessed to her family that they thought the car must be hidden somewhere impossible to reach. Others wondered if they had been looking in the wrong place all along. Still, after months of effort, each new investigation stalled. Eventually, the case was pushed back into storage again. For the family, this cycle was torture. Each time a new detective called, hope returned. Each time the case went cold again, the heartbreak deepened. The pattern became familiar. New energy, new searches, new promises, then silence. Over the years, it became clear. No matter who took the file, the trail always collapsed in the same way. By the early 1990s, her disappearance was no longer just a case file. It had become a story people told each other in diners, bars, and gas stations. Truckers passing through the area whispered about it over late-night coffee. Teenagers dared each other to drive the same highways she once patrolled, claiming her ghost still roamed the road. Some swore they saw strange lights over the lake on foggy nights. Others said her patrol car was hidden deep in the woods, covered by brush, waiting to be found. The truth didn't matter anymore. The story had taken on a life of its own. Locals called it the patrol car that vanished. It was a phrase everyone knew, even if they didn't remember her name. But for her family, it was more than folklore. It wasn't a spooky tale to pass around. It was their reality. While strangers traded rumors over drinks, her parents sat at home with empty chairs at the table. Still, the legend grew. The mystery of a missing officer gone without a trace became a permanent part of local culture. People loved to talk about it, but nobody could explain it, and nobody could solve it. While the town treated the story like folklore, her family never accepted it as just a mystery. Her siblings stepped up as the years went on, refusing to let her memory fade. They wrote letters to police chiefs, begging them to keep the case alive. They met with detectives whenever the file was reopened, offering help, sharing new ideas, anything to push the search forward. They printed fresh flyers with her photo, even long after most people assumed the case was unsolvable. Holidays were the hardest. At Christmas, her stocking was still hung. At birthdays, her name was still spoken. Every family gathering had the same unspoken question: when will we know the truth? Her siblings also spoke to reporters, trying to keep her face in the news. Sometimes, a local paper would run a story, but attention always faded again. The family fought to bring it back, over and over. For them, the case wasn't about rumors, legends, or folklore. It was about a real person, their sister, who had vanished. And no matter how many years passed, they refused to let her be forgotten. By the mid-1990s, the silence was crushing. The investigation had gone cold years earlier, and most of the community had moved on. New crimes took over headlines. New faces joined the highway patrol. For many, the missing officer was only a memory, a sad story told in passing. But for her family, the absence never eased. Every day was a reminder. Her bedroom sat untouched, clothes folded in drawers, photographs frozen in time. Holidays came and went, each one quieter than the last. The empty chair at the table was a wound that never healed. Her parents carried the pain heavily. Neighbors noticed how much older they looked, as if the years had doubled on them. Friends tried to comfort them, but nothing helped. Without answers, there was no peace. Her siblings carried the fight forward. They didn't shout anymore. They didn't hold big rallies or draw large crowds. Instead, they fought quietly, writing letters, calling police departments, and reminding anyone who would listen that their sister was still missing. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't enough to spark new leads, but it kept the case from dying completely. Their quiet persistence made sure the mystery stayed alive, even as the years stretched into decades. In 2004, the region faced one of the worst droughts in decades. For months, there was barely any rain. Fields turned brown, grass burned in the sun, and farmers struggled to save their crops. Rivers shrank into streams, and ponds dried into cracked earth. The biggest change was at the local lake. It had always been wide and deep, a favorite place for fishing and swimming. But that summer, the water levels dropped lower than anyone could remember. The shoreline crept back, exposing long stretches of dry, muddy ground. Boats that once floated sat stuck in shallow water. Piers ended in nothing but dirt. Locals gathered on weekends just to look at the strange sight. Some walked across areas that had been underwater for years, leaving footprints in sticky mud. Old tree stumps, once hidden at the bottom, now stood tall like broken teeth. People began to joke that the lake was giving up its secrets. But beneath the laughter there was unease. Everyone knew that when lakes drop this low, things hidden for years sometimes resurface. And in this lake, there was one secret people whispered about more than any other: the missing patrolwoman. As the weeks passed, more and more objects began to appear in the shrinking lake. At first, it was small things: rusty beer cans, broken fishing poles, tires half buried in the mud. Kids collected them like treasures, showing off the strange junk they found along the edges. Then the bigger things appeared. A line of old oil barrels, their sides eaten by rust, poked out of the water. People wondered if they'd been dumped there decades ago. One afternoon, a group of boys exploring near the far shore stumbled upon something stranger: the skeleton of a small wooden boat. Its frame was cracked and warped, the wood soft and black from years underwater. Word spread quickly. Soon, locals treated the lake like a museum, coming down to see what new secret would rise next. Some thought it was fascinating, others said it was eerie. But behind every conversation was the same thought: if old boats and barrels were surfacing, what else might the water be hiding? A few whispered about the patrolwoman's cruiser. Most brushed it off as just another rumor. Still, people couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was waiting to be uncovered. One hot afternoon, two local fishermen launched their small boat onto the shrinking lake. They weren't expecting much. With the water so low, fish had become scarce. Still, they cast their lines and drifted slowly near the bank, hopping for luck. As the sun beat down, one of them noticed a strange glint in the water. At first, he thought it was just sunlight bouncing off the muddy surface. But as they drifted closer, the shine didn't fade. It seemed to come from something buried just beneath the shallow water. The man pointed it out, and both fishermen leaned over the side of the boat. Through the murky water, they saw what looked like a flat sheet of metal. It was covered in silt, but the edges caught the sunlight. They exchanged uneasy looks. The lake had revealed plenty of junk already: barrels, cans, even the frame of a boat. But this piece seemed larger, more solid. It didn't look like random debris. It looked like the top of something. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then one muttered, "What do you think that is?" Neither had an answer. The fishermen steered their boat closer, curiosity outweighing their nerves. They used an oar to push through the thick mud, stopping just above the shiny object. Leaning over, one dragged his hand through the water, wiping away silt. The shape was clearer now. It wasn't a thin sheet of scrap. It was the roof of a vehicle. They could see the curve of metal, the faded paint, and something that made their stomachs twist: a number stenciled faintly on the side. At first, they told themselves it had to be an old junk car, dumped long ago. People had been tossing things into this lake for decades. But the more they looked, the harder it was to ignore the details. This wasn't just a random car. It looked official. The fishermen sat in silence, the weight of realization sinking in. One finally whispered, "What if this is her?" The missing patrolwoman's story had haunted the area for 20 years. Most people thought it would never be solved. Now, staring at the half-buried roof in the mud, The two men knew they had found something far bigger than junk. They rowed back in silence, knowing they had to call the authorities. The fishermen didn't waste time. As soon as they reached shore, they called the sheriff's office. Within hours, a small team of deputies and investigators arrived at the lake. Word spread quickly, and soon a small crowd of locals gathered on the banks, whispering as the officers prepared to wade in. The investigators moved carefully. The ground was soft, sucking at their boots with every step. Using long poles, they scraped away at the thick mud, trying to clear the surface. At first, it was hard to tell what they were looking at. The shape was buried deep, and decades of silt had hardened around it like cement. But slowly, as they worked layer by layer, the outline came into focus. This wasn't just a piece of scrap metal. It was the roof of a vehicle. The surface curved just enough to give it away. One deputy brushed his hand across the mud, feeling the solid, familiar shape of steel. His face tightened. Cars didn't just sink to the bottom of lakes by accident, and certainly not here, in this place where a patrolwoman had once vanished. The air grew heavy, as everyone realized this could be the break they had been waiting for. The team brought in hoses and buckets, working to wash the mud away. Brown water streamed down into the lake as the shape of the vehicle became clearer. First, the roof, then part of the side, finally, what looked like a door. Someone sprayed across the metal and faint numbers appeared through the grime. At first, they were barely visible. Investigators leaned in close, squinting. The digits grew clearer with every rinse. One officer froze, staring at the faded paint. His voice cracked as he called out. It was a unit number, the same number that had belonged to the patrol cruiser driven by the missing officer in 1983. For a long moment, no one moved. The crowd on the shoreline fell silent. Deputies stood still in the mud, staring at the numbers as if they couldn't believe it. This wasn't just a junk car. This was her car, the one everyone had been searching for over 2 decades. The officers exchanged looks of shock, disbelief, and dread. They knew what came next. Whatever secrets had been trapped at the bottom of the lake for 21 years were finally about to come out. The crowd at the lakeshore grows as word spreads. Deputies rope off the area, trying to hold people back. Cameras click. Reporters rush forward. Everyone wants to see the discovery that has been hidden for 15 long years. The muddy roof, once mistaken for scrap, now stands out clear against the shallow water. A tow truck backs down the ramp, chains clanking, mud splashing as workers secure the cables. The steel groans when the winch starts pulling. Slowly, painfully, the shape of a car rises from the lake. The crowd goes quiet. Nobody speaks. All eyes are locked on the water. Bit by bit, the vehicle emerges. The outline is unmistakable. The long body, the reinforced bumpers, the spotlight on the side mirror, every detail screams one thing. This is a patrol cruiser. Deputies stare in silence. For years, they had searched roads, barns, and forests. But here it was, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the drought to bring it back. The front bumper breaks the surface, coated in slime and weeds. Then the doors appear. On the driver's side, caked with mud, faint paint lines come into view. The number, the same number that had been assigned to her car. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Some people gasp. Others just shake their heads in disbelief. A few of the deputies bow their heads, unable to watch. Finally, the whole car sits on the muddy bank. Its tires are shredded, its windows cracked, but there is no doubt anymore. This isn't just any car. It is her car, the one she had been driving the night she vanished. For the family, it feels like time stops. All the vigils, all the prayers, all the unanswered questions, everything points to this moment. The lake, silent for so long, has finally given up its secret. The sheriff steps forward, his voice heavy. This is the patrolwoman's cruiser. The words hit like a thunderclap. After 15 years of mystery, the truth has begun to surface. The case that had haunted the town is no longer a rumor. It is real. And now, investigators know they are standing at the edge of an answer. By sunrise, the lake is no longer quiet. Emergency lights flash red and blue across the muddy shoreline. Trucks line the dirt road. Deputies push back onlookers as more equipment rolls in. A flatbed tow truck, a crane, and even a dive team truck pull up in a long row. Everyone knows this is no normal recovery. The patrol car has been trapped underwater for years. Pulling it out will take power, patience, and luck. Divers gear up first. They slip into wetsuits and strap tanks onto their backs. Their job is to secure heavy chains beneath the car, but the lake water is thick with mud, weeds, and sharp debris. Each step is slow. Every movement disappears into a brown cloud. On shore, mechanics and deputies argue over the best plan. Should they drag the car toward the bank? Should they lift it straight up? Nobody wants to damage it. This isn't junk, this is evidence. The crane operator lowers thick cables into the water. The divers work by touch, wrapping the car's frame in cold metal chains. When they resurface, their masks are caked in mud. Reporters gather on the edge of the police line. Cameras zoom in. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for. Engines roar to life. The crane groans as the cables tighten. Mud bubbles rise to the surface. The lake seems to resist, refusing to let go. Still, the crew pushes forward. This car has been hidden long enough. The first attempt begins. Everyone holds their breath. The crane pulls hard, the cables stretch. For a second the car shifts. Then snap. A chain breaks loose, whipping back toward shore. Deputies duck. One worker barely avoids being hit. The crowd gasps. The sheriff calls for everyone to step back. Nobody wants a fatal accident. This isn't going to be quick. Hours drag on. Each attempt ends the same way. The car won't move. It's buried deep, trapped in a cement-like mix of mud and suction. The lake is fighting to keep its secret. Divers go down again, trying new anchor points. Their lights vanish in the brown water. They tug and pull, searching for solid parts of the frame. When they surface, their faces are tired. One shakes his head. "It's like the earth swallowed it whole," he mutters. The crane operator tries again. Engines roar, chains rattle, the cables scream under pressure. Mud boils up in huge clouds. The car shifts only an inch, then stops dead. Another chain snaps. This time the recoil smashes into the ground, throwing dirt and rocks. Reporters stumble back. Deputies raise their arms, shouting for calm. The sun sinks lower. The crowd grows restless. 15 years of waiting, and now it seems like the lake still refuses to give up what it stole. The sheriff looks at the crane, the mud, and the stubborn car beneath the surface. His jaw tightens. They will not quit, not tonight. The fight for the patrolwoman's cruiser has only begun. The crane roars again, louder this time. The operator leans forward, eyes locked on the water. Divers shout from below, signaling that the chains are finally set in place. Deputies wave the crowd back. Nobody blinks. Nobody dares to breathe. The cables tighten. Mud churns. At first it looks like the same failure as before, just bubbles and brown water. Then something changes. A dark shape pushes upward, breaking free from the suction. The lake groans as if it's giving up a fight. The roof appears first, caked in thick layers of mud. The faded paint peeks through in patches. Reporters push against the tape, cameras flashing. Deputies hold them back. This is history rising right in front of them. Slowly, inch by inch, the patrol car climbs into view. Its windshield is shattered. Water pours from the frame like blood draining from a wound. The metal groans as if it doesn't want to be touched. The crane swings it gently toward the bank. Chains creak under the weight. Everyone is silent now. No one cheers. No one claps. The air is heavy with fear, respect, and dread. When the car finally settles onto the mud, its tires sink deep. It looks broken, ancient, like a ghost dragged from the bottom of time. The sheriff steps forward. He doesn't say a word, he just stares. For 15 years this car was gone. Now it's here, and whatever truth is locked inside, good or bad, will soon be known. The car sits still, dripping with water and sludge. Deputies circle it like hunters closing in. No one wants to be the first to touch it. Finally, 2 investigators step forward with crowbars. Their gloves are slick with mud. They test the driver's door. It won't move. Rust has sealed it shut. They brace themselves and pry harder. The metal groans but holds tight. The crowd behind the tape leans in, straining for a glimpse. With one final shove, the hinges snap. The door creaks open an inch, then wider, spilling a flood of dark water onto the ground. The stench makes people gag. Flashlights pierce the interior. It looks like a tomb. The radio dangles from its cord, corroded and useless. A flashlight sits on the passenger seat, covered in grime. The seat cushions have rotted into black sludge. Investigators pull out muddy notebooks, pens, scraps of paper, and shattered glass. Each item is bagged carefully. This isn't just debris, it's evidence. But everyone knows what they're really waiting for. They want to know if she's inside. Every eye is fixed on the investigator's hands, waiting for the next move. The sheriff stands motionless. His face is pale. After all these years, they are finally staring into the patrolwoman's last known place. Investigators push deeper into the wreck. One of them leans across the driver's side, flashlight steady. The beam cuts through the murk, sweeping over the dashboard and down toward the seat. He freezes. What he sees isn't fabric or rust, it's bone. The call goes out instantly. Deputies rush forward. The crowd behind the tape stirs, whispers rising, but deputies raise their arms to keep everyone back. This is no longer just a car recovery. This is a crime scene. The driver's seat is soaked in mud, but pieces of a skeleton are clear. A ribcage slumps against the steering wheel. Fragments of clothing cling to the remains. The badge, once shiny, is rusted to the belt. A service pistol, corroded but recognizable, rests near the bones of her hand. No one speaks. The silence is crushing. Even the reporters lower their cameras, too stunned to move. For 15 years, people had asked where she went, who took her, what really happened. Now the answer is staring back at them. She never left. She was here the whole time, locked inside her own cruiser at the bottom of the lake. The sheriff turns away, his eyes wet. The truth has come, but it feels heavier than anyone imagined. The remains are carefully removed, piece by piece, and sent to the coroner's office. The town waits in silence, though everyone already knows. Still, the official word has to come. Experts compare dental records. It doesn't take long. The match is exact. The bones belong to the missing patrolwoman. The announcement is made in a hushed press conference. The sheriff speaks only a few words. His voice cracks as he confirms what the town has feared for a decade and a half. The officer who vanished on duty has been found, dead. Her family sits in the front row. Tears stream down their faces. For years they prayed she might be alive, maybe taken, maybe hiding, maybe out there somewhere waiting to come home. That hope dies with the coroner's words. Outside, the community gathers. Candles are lit. Posters with her face, once tacked to telephone poles and store windows, are pulled out again, this time not for searching but for mourning. Detectives reopen old files, determined to find how her cruiser ended up buried in the lake. But for the family, one truth is already final. Their daughter, their sister, their loved one is gone. The mystery of her disappearance is over. The mystery of her death is only beginning. The town should feel closure. The missing patrolwoman has been found. But instead of peace, new questions come roaring in. If this was just an accident, people ask, how could no one find her for 21 years? Detectives had searched every road, every ditch, every river. Helicopters had flown overhead. Divers had combed lakes. And yet her car sat in plain sight, just beneath the waterline. Locals gather in diners and shake their heads. A whole patrol cruiser, one man mutters, and not a soul saw it. Some whisper that maybe she had been run off the road that night, forced, trapped, driven straight into the lake by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Detectives don't ignore the rumors. They go back through her old case files. Could a criminal she once arrested have wanted revenge? Could a suspect have waited for her that night? Others push a different theory. Maybe she stopped for someone she trusted. Maybe that person never meant for her to leave alive. The lake has given up her car, but it hasn't given up the truth. Was it fate, fatigue, or foul play? The answer remains buried in questions no one can yet prove. The cruiser is pulled onto solid ground, and now it's the forensic team's turn. Experts in white suits move carefully around the vehicle. Every inch matters. This isn't just a car, it's a crime scene frozen in time. They begin by photographing the exterior, capturing dents, rust, and the exact position of the doors and windows. Next, they check the tires. If the car had been forced off the road, maybe the rubber would show signs of a blowout or sudden stop. but the tires are shredded from years underwater, almost impossible to read. Investigators shine lights inside the cabin. They search the seats, the floorboards, even the trunk. Was anything planted here? Any weapon? Any clue pointing to foul play? Divers also return to the water, combing the area around where the car sat. They sift through mud, looking for broken glass, a weapon, or even another vehicle's paint. Anything that might suggest a collision. The cruiser is hauled into a secure facility. Over the next days, experts use tools and chemicals to peel back layers of corrosion. They test the locks, the radio, the doors. The question looms over everything. Was this woman the victim of an accident or something far darker? Days of testing finally bring answers, and they surprise everyone. The locks show no signs of tampering. There's no evidence the doors were forced open. Forensic checks on the windows show they weren't smashed. Ballistic tests reveal no trace of bullets inside or out. The radio, though ruined by water, carries no sign of distress calls. The steering column is intact. The gear shift is in drive. Everything points to the car being fully functional when it entered the water. There are no scratches or dents that suggest another vehicle rammed it. Inside, the patrolwoman's equipment, her flashlight, her radio, even her badge sits where it should. Nothing is missing. Nothing is staged. Forensic experts begin leaning toward one explanation. This was no ambush, no betrayal. The evidence points to a simple, devastating accident. She likely drove off the road herself, possibly late at night, possibly tired from her shift, and her car plunged into the lake. For years, people whispered about killers, kidnappers, and cover-ups. But now, science tells a quieter story, a tragic one, but one without villains. The case that gripped the town begins to shift from murder mystery to accident. Forensic teams piece together what probably happened that night in 1983. She had just finished her late shift. She was driving home in the early hours, exhausted. The highway she took curved near the large lake. At that hour, there were no lights, no traffic, nothing but darkness. Experts believe she may have nodded off, even for a second. Her car drifted toward the shoulder. The ground sloped down sharply toward the waterline. Once her tires left the pavement, the heavy cruiser gained speed downhill. There were no skid marks, no signs of braking. That suggests she didn't even wake up before impact. The car plunged straight into the lake. In seconds, it was swallowed. Back then, seatbelts were less common. It's possible she was stunned or even unconscious the moment the water hit. With the weight of the engine pulling it down, the cruiser sank quickly. Investigators explain this scenario to her family. It's painful. It means her death may have been a quiet accident, not a crime. But for the first time, they have a clear picture of what might have happened. The family asks the obvious question. If this was an accident, why didn't search teams find her in 1983? The answer lies in the lake itself. Back then, the water was far deeper. The drought that revealed the cruiser in 2004 lowered the shoreline by dozens of feet. But in 1983, the lake covered everything with murky, silt-heavy water. Visibility was close to zero. Search teams had helicopters, divers, and sonar, but the technology of the time was primitive compared to now. Divers could only scan a small radius around boat ramps and bridges. Sonar images were blurry and unreliable. Unless a car was sitting near the surface, there was almost no way to spot it. Her cruiser had sunk far from shore, buried deep in mud. Over 2 decades, the car became part of the lakebed itself, sealed under layers of silt. Detectives admit the truth. Even with their best effort, they never had a real chance to find her back then. Only nature, through the drought, could finally uncover the secret. When detectives sit down with the family, the room is heavy with silence. Her siblings lean forward, waiting for answers they've begged for over 20 years. Her parents, now older and frail, hold hands tightly. The lead detective explains what the forensic team discovered. There is no sign of foul play, no ambush, no betrayal. All the evidence points to a tragic accident, her car drifting off the road and sinking into the lake. At first, the words feel like a punch. For so long, the family believed something darker must have happened. Some even wondered if the truth was being hidden. Hearing that it was an accident feels almost too simple. Tears fill the room. Her parents grieve all over again, but this time the pain has an ending. They know where she is. They know what happened. For the first time, there are no more what-ifs. Her siblings cry, but they also express relief. The endless waiting is over. They can finally bring her home, lay her to rest, and speak about her in the past tense without guilt. Closure has come, even though it hurts. The patrolwoman's fellow officers refuse to let her story end quietly. They organize a formal ceremony in her honor. On a clear morning, dozens of patrol cars line up in formation outside the police headquarters. Officers in crisp uniforms stand at attention, their badges gleaming in the sun. A folded American flag rests on a podium. One by one, her former coworkers step forward to speak. They recall her dedication, her humor on long shifts, and her courage on dangerous calls. Some struggle through tears. For them, she wasn't just a coworker, she was family. The department plays the radio recording of her last words. "I'm heading home." The sound echoes across the crowd. Many bow their heads. Then comes the final tribute. Officers raise their hands in salute as a bell tolls. Her name is read aloud and officially added to the memorial wall of fallen officers. For over 20 years, she was considered missing. Now, she is remembered for her service, her sacrifice, and the life she gave in uniform. Her fellow patrolmen promise she will never be forgotten. The case ends, but the story lingers. In the town, people can't stop talking about it. For 21 years, the truth sat quietly beneath the lake, hidden just a few hundred feet from where families picnicked, kids swam, and fishermen cast their lines. Nobody knew. Locals reflect on what it means. A respected patrolwoman vanished, and despite searches, technology, and endless effort, no one could find her. It took nature itself, a drought, to finally reveal what had been there all along. In diners and living rooms, people say the same thing. If it could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. One small mistake, one dark road, and a life can disappear for decades. For her family, closure comes with pain, but also peace. For her fellow officers, the case is a reminder of how fragile their work is, and how easily danger can hide in plain sight. The story becomes a warning passed down to new recruits and shared among neighbors. Not every disappearance is murder. Not every mystery has villains. Sometimes it's just tragedy and silence that lasts far too long. Her name, her story, and her sacrifice never fade.